In case you missed it, here's Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week. And now it's time for... 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's random.
Is that a fact?
Is that a fact?
4 random facts.
I guess if you wanted to lose some weight, you might wish you were a silverfish. Silverfish can survive without food for over 300 days if water is available.
Oh, I'd be so hungry, though.
That's a year. I barely can last like 6 hours. I'm always thinking about next meal, right? Or later that night. In the morning, I get up and I'm thinking about what I'm making that night for dinner.
I literally have a bag of snacks right next to me. I was eating before we got on the air.
And she has a jar of peanut butter and a spoon ready to go.
No, I'm out of peanut butter right now, David. I need to go to the store and get some more. It's true that there hasn't been a president with facial hair since William Howard Taft. From 1908 until 1912, he had a mustache.
Oh, so they need to get a president that has a nice full beard or mutton chops. Like, go old school.
You know what, though? I think a lot of guys don't want the beard now because by the time you run for president, it's all gray.
Yeah, and gets worse every year. You know this? Popcorn at a movie theater per ounce costs more than filet mignon.
Well, popcorn is pretty cheap and sure to jack the price up at movie theaters. I mean, but where else do you get that movie theater butter?
Well, and the taste, right?
Mm-hmm. And finally, do you know 10% of Canadians visit Florida every year?
Well, they haven't as much the last couple of years, but that doesn't surprise me.
A lot of people have places down there or rent places. Disney World.
There's your 4 random facts.
Today's
1, 2,
4.
So random.
random.
Give the public the facts.
4 random facts.
Well, if you've ever run any distance at all, you know it's not an easy thing to do, right? You're pushing your body, and especially if you're training for something really big like a marathon. And this caused a big debate online this past weekend.
So a couple named Ben and Cammie are exercise fanatics from the state of Kentucky. They have 6 kids and actually run a YouTube channel called Fight For Together. And they've been in the news over the last week or so because they actually let their 6-year-old son run a full marathon. That is 26.2 miles. What does that work out in 2 kilometers?
A lot. 42. 42.1, I think it is.
Yeah, like it's not an easy distance. Their son, it was apparently the first time the whole family has run together. All 5 kids have done it before him. Now, Ben and Cammie are claiming that their 6-year-old begged them to do it. They never forced him. They also said they kept checking in to make sure that he was doing okay and to let him know that he could stop at any time. But there's some accounts coming out now saying it didn't really appear that way. It seemed like they were kind of pressuring for him to finish the race.
Well, or keep pushing through it. For example, Ben admitted Rainier was crying when there was nothing left at the snack table with 6 miles to go. Not sure why there would be nothing left. I mean, you account for the number of runners.
Well, it sounds like maybe
we're taking extras.
Well,
maybe.
It took him 8 hours and 35 minutes. Is that a slower time for a marathon?
I mean, overall.
So maybe they had just run out of snacks, or maybe the snacks he wanted at the table.
Well, they pushed him a little bit and said they'd get him some Pringles later if he kept going. He ended up finishing in 8 hours and 35 minutes. Sounds like he was pretty tired, but okay. And by the way, they also let their daughter run her first marathon when she was 6 years old.
But the organizers of the race are also catching some heat because there was an age limit on the race of 18. And you didn't think to question when there was a 6-year-old running by the start line?
Well, one person who spoke up was an Olympic runner who said that she thinks the 6-year-old might not realize they have the right to stop. They in their little minds think, okay, I got to keep going. Story blew up after Good Morning America aired an interview with the parents, and that's where it took off from there. So that's why it really, became a bigger thing. And in fact, they even got a visit from Child Protective Services. It seems like a bit over the top, but they wanted to make sure that everything was okay.
And I mean, I'm just thinking about like my nephews. They're not 6, but they're like 4 and 8. They're around that age. And you had kids. I mean, at 6, sometimes your kids cry because you won't let them eat dirt. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you have to put your foot down and say no. Maybe they should have put their foot down and say, hey, let's start with maybe a 5K, right? Do a 5K fun run. We'll see how it goes. And then you go from there.
Well, here's the actual child himself, Rain. You're talking about the event and his parents.
Some of the training was like hard. I fall sometimes.
I didn't know if he was going to be able to do it. To watch his little body, it's pretty mind-blowing. Nothing we do is illegal. nothing hurts anyone else.
We really care about our kids' emotional and physical health.
I've done a lot of runs over the last 10 years or so as I got into it. I've seen lots of kids at 5Ks, kids that will beat me. I tell my wife all the time, see that kid there? That kid's going to beat me for sure. That kid's going to run faster than me, and they're going to stop, and they're going to smell a dandelion, and they're going to pet a dog, and then I'll pass them, and then they'll pass me again.
They'll sprint. They sprint, and then they walk, and then they sprint, and then they walk.
I've seen a few do 10Ks, but I've done some half marathons, but I've never seen any young kids running that. And here's the other thing: if you've never done this before, there's so much training that goes into it beforehand.
It's not so much about he ran the marathon. For me, it's more about were his parents pushing him to train? Because you don't just get up one day and be like, I'm going to run a marathon. At least not without killing yourself.
Well, you could, but I mean, you're going to hurt bad. I've done a half, a couple of them now, 3 actually. That's enough for me. I don't want to do. I know you tease me. Oh, you're going to do a marathon someday. No, I don't think so.
Well, what is it? Know your limits, play within it. It's the same thing with this. And I'm just really questioning the parents to be like, you can ease them into a little more. Start with like a 3K, like a 5K fun run. And then if you wanted to keep going, okay, the next time we'll do a 10K.
Yeah.
And work your way up.
It just seems dramatic at 6 to be letting him run a full-length marathon. Well, there's a day of the week where we tend to hit snooze more often than any other day.
And believe it or not, it's not Monday. It's actually Wednesday. 40% of people say they're likely to hit snooze on a Wednesday. 28% said that about Mondays.
I don't find Monday that bad, to be quite honest. A lot of times it's a Tuesday that I struggle a bit more.
Tuesdays are definitely the worst. And apparently, too, if you hit the snooze button once, you're likely to hit it again. 72% of people say they hit the snooze between 1 and 4 times each morning.
Times. And what is is it 6 minutes, 7 minutes between?
Does it depend on the alarm?
So you could go almost a half an hour. If my partner was doing that, I would be twitchy. I would be like, get up. Stop hitting the snooze button.
Well, so I guess we fall in the 16% of people say they never hit snooze. I rarely do because I set my alarm for I get up at this time to get ready. And if I don't get up at that time, I'm not going to get to work on time. But I guess I know some girls, right? They set their alarm, and if you get up when it goes off at first, they'll do, I don't know, a full face of makeup and wash their hair. And if they don't, then it's dry shampoo and yesterday's mascara. I don't know if my snooze button would even work. My alarm clock's older, so I feel like I would hit that and the whole thing would fall apart. Well, so I have one, because I have 3 alarms, right? I have my regular alarm, an actual alarm clock, my cell phone, which is actually plugged in on the other side of the room, so I have to get up to turn it off.
That makes sense.
And then I have my Fitbit because it's got like a silent vibrating alarm to wake me up.
I like this stat. 63% say sleeping in makes them happier. Why is that not 100%? Who says getting a little extra sleep doesn't make them happier? I think that should be a given. You can get a little bit of extra sleep, although they say that's something you shouldn't do. You get into those cycles of trying to play catch up on your days off.
Doesn't really work. Well, here's a few random trade-offs people would be willing to make if it meant they got an extra hour of sleep every night. 33% say they would never use a knife or spoon to eat again if it meant an extra hour of sleep.
Eating with their hands?
30% would give up their favorite streaming service for a year. 28% would eat the same dinner every day. 28% would never go to a concert or sporting event again. And 24% say, yeah, I'd sleep on the floor for a month.
We're a tired bunch of people, aren't we?
Well,
if we're willing to give up all those things?
You know what? It's hard if you're reading a really good book or you're watching a show and it's next episode. Are
you still watching? Yes. Stop judging me. Yeah, this is definitely an oh-no moment. A modern art museum in Paris recently added a new piece that was just a blue jacket hanging on a nail.
And if you're wondering, well, how is this art? Well, what they did was they put postcards of Picasso paintings in the pockets of the jacket that people could take out and look through. So it was kind of an interactive thing. But unfortunately, a 72-year-old woman who was going through the art museum didn't realize it was art and just took the jacket.
Just thought it was up for grabs or what?
She walked off with it. Not even like she picked it up, took it to security to be like, someone left this jacket behind. No, she took it took it home, and no one knew who she was. So they were unable to track her down. But they were able to find her because she took the jacket to a tailor, had it altered, and then came back to the museum wearing it.
Oh, no. So now the artist's vision of that obviously has been totally ruined because of that. She had it tailored.
She had it tailored and then wore it back to the place she took it from. Like, the audacity. So cops were actually on site collecting evidence when she walked in, and they were like, well, that's the coat. It was like,
what if
what?
she walked up to the police going, oh, what's going on here?
And so she's like, oh, I didn't know it was art. And they were like, but you just walked off with a stranger's coat then? They arrested her, but ultimately they decided to just let her off with a warning. And in case you're like, well, I mean, it's a piece of art. Was it insured? No one would insure it because they were like, that someone can walk off with it. But if someone can walk off with it, why didn't you have a security guard in that room at all times?
Or something there that would prevent this somehow. So, yeah, not insured. Well, now they've got a tailored coat, I suppose.
Like, I was thinking of like, couldn't you know, like when you go to a store, right? And sometimes they have like the expensive leather coats and they're like locked up to the rack. Could you not have locked it up to the wall?
Right, with like one of those ropes, right?
So,
those plastic ropes.
Yeah, like that's behind it so that if someone tried to take it, it wouldn't leave.
Apparently, we should be working at this art museum. As you get older, you start thinking about retirement. What are you going to do in retirement? I mean, with housing prices now, people are thinking, okay, well, if I paid off my house a long time ago, I can cash in. Where are you going to go and what are you going to do with that money? Well, there's a couple of things people are doing.
People are flocking to cruise ships, actually, and not for vacation. They're pretty much living at sea. Apparently, this is a new trend of people making cruise ships pretty much a retirement home as they're stringing together back-to-back long voyages. You know, these are those world cruises or grand cruises that can last well over 100 days. And so they're just stringing them sort of back to back to back.
Now, cruises can offer kind of like all-inclusive living environments, organized events, decent level of medical care because most of them have, you know, doctors and nurses on board.
Well, you think about it, especially for some of these, I bet you they would give a good discount where you could be on the ship. You don't have to worry about housekeeping. You can send all your laundry out. All your food is made for you. Activities already planned. Places to go and see.
I mean, if you've got the money to do it, then you get a chance to see the world.
And a lot of the cruise ships have much more reliable internet these days, so you can almost even take a semi-retirement and work remotely some of the time from the ship.
Well, and that's what some people are actually doing too, is what they're calling unretiring.
Yeah, they say, you know, with rising inflation, a thriving job market that is letting, depending what sector you're in, to let you sort of cherry pick which job you want to work and better pay and perks. A lot of people are now returning to the workforce because I think when the pandemic hit, some of these older adults who could retire but maybe had decided not to because they enjoyed their job, decided to call it quits. And maybe now they're like, maybe I don't like this retirement thing. I'm going to go back part-time a little bit, especially now that some of the health risks are mitigated.
And the demand is there, obviously, because there's some people that are like, no, I'm not going to work this type of job anymore, and they move on to something else. So it's opening doors for older people to go, yeah, I'd like to work 10, 15 hours a week, make a little bit of extra money on the side, and keep your brain active.
Yeah, or at least I've heard of some people, too, they're like, they'll work full time, but then they want to have the flexibility to say, bye, I'm leaving to Portugal for 2 months. I'll be back in 2 months. See you then.
Yeah, a little easier to do if you're part-time and you can say, okay, yeah, these are my hours, but now I'm going to be on a cruise for 100 days. So see you in 100 days.
And now it's time to put some good in your morning. The good news brought to you by Almar Home Improvements. 519-351-5666.
And we've got two stories about long-lost dogs found.
So in this first one, it was about 5 years ago that a woman by the name of Jen from New York State lost her dog. She said her English bulldog went missing shortly after she had had surgery. And, I mean, the surgery combined with her dog going missing led to a deep depression for her. So, needless to say, 5 years later, she was shocked when she was contacted by an animal rescue from Tennessee.
Wow.
To say, hey, we have your dog. About 1,000 miles away from where she is. So she hopped in her car, made the drive down to Henderson, Tennessee, where she was reunited with her English bulldog. And she said she's going to get anything she wants. She's number one right now, and she knows it. Well, She'll know it soon.
Where was it? Did someone steal it and then it ended up they gave it up, got into a shelter. And then the second story, Tay Bennett of London was only 12 years old when she lost her Chihuahua, Ollie. That dog was actually stolen by thieves. Fast forward 10 years later, the dog recently turned up at a playground 20 miles away from where he was taken. Tay said that she was shocked by the news. She said, it was just incredible. I never thought this would happen. I have no clue where he came from. As soon as Ollie came into the room and heard my stepdad's voice, he immediately walked over to him, rolled on his back, and let him scratch his belly. He definitely recognized him. As for myself, it took a little bit longer. I look and sound completely different than when I was 12 years old.
Well, she was 12, and it's been 10 years, so she's 22 now?
So these long-lost dogs. You ever have a pet go missing for a long time and come back?
Maybe not a long time, but I remember our last husky, Sheba. She had to stay on a leash or a rope or in a fenced-in area because she was a runner. She would just sort of follow the scents wherever it took her, and it usually took her into town in Chatham. I know she was picked up by the OSPCA a couple times. One time a family found her, and they were ready to keep her if we didn't want her. They had fallen in love with her, like, overnight.
She was like the littlest hobo, just on the road again, trying to find her next adventure. We had a cat go missing, and it came back like about 3 or 4 years later.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was actually going upstairs to bed, and we had this like overhang where the porch was downstairs. And he used to always go in and out that window, right? And I heard this tapping on the window, and I looked at it. I was like, oh, my God, it's the cat. My mom freaked. She loved that cat, and that cat ended up living, I think he was about 15 or 16 years old. But where he went from the time he was about 2 to 7, who knows?
If our pets could talk.
I think we all love a good would you rather question. So someone did a survey with questions that were only about money, and they polled over 30,000 people. Here's some of the best ones.
So, would you rather win the lottery and lose all your friends, or lose all your money but find your soulmate?
Wow, that's a tough one. What would you say?
That is a tough one. Well, 59% said they would rather be broke and in love.
But define broke. Does that mean you're just getting by paycheck to paycheck, or am I living in a cardboard box now?
Yeah.
But
like, am I losing the savings of what's in my savings? You know, that whole $5 or
I mean, love's good too, don't get me wrong, but
and how much are we winning in the lottery? Like, are we talking Powerball money, or
are we talking Encore money, which is still nice, but still. Would you rather have a job you hate that pays well, or a job you love with a below average salary?
Well, I'm already in the job that I love with the below average salaries.
I love what we do too. So 56% say they'd rather have a job that they love.
Yeah, because I feel like you can only do a job that you hate for so long.
The stress of it, you'd be bringing that home all the time.
Although accordion says that pays well. How well?
Would you rather spend $1 million on clothes or $1 million on travel?
Oh, travel for sure. And 88% of people agree with us on that one.
Yeah, you'll never regret the places you've been to because you'll have memories the rest of your life.
Would you rather make $100,000 on Bitcoin or $50,000 investing in a business that helps the environment?
The environment.
Yeah, 69% of people agreed with that one too.
Would you rather get $1 million right now or $100,000 a year for 10 years? Get $1 million. I'm going to give you $1 million right now, or it's like a cash for life thing. You're going to get $100,000 for the next 10
I think
years.
I'd rather take the $1 million because then I can just invest it and then make my money off of that.
Yeah.
Like live off the interest.
The interest alone. But what you could also do with $1 million right now, help out yourself, help out your friends and family.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing though. 71% say they'd rather get $100,000 a year so they wouldn't spend it all.
Well,
I think they might spend it on frivolous things.
I see that aspect of it too, coming into sudden wealth. You're suddenly inclined to spend a lot of it.
Well, or you get hit up by a lot of people, right? Well, you got $1 million, so why can't you help me and give me a couple bucks?
Would you rather go back in time to fix your biggest money mistake, or look into your future to find out where you end up? Interesting question.
Go back in time.
Yeah, same.
I'd probably go back and probably start investing earlier and maybe like not spend money on dumb things
If
when I was younger.
Biggest message I try and say to the kids, or, I'm going to try and emphasize that with our grandkids too. Save earlier. Save your money. Even if you just get so much taken off a paycheck that you don't notice it. It doesn't even have to be an exorbitant amount.
No.
Start that in your 20s.
Start with $25 a paycheck and then slowly increase it.
But how many of us are guilty of not doing that and like, no, I'm going out this weekend. I got to go to the lake.
Thinking too, it's a lot easier to open up maybe like an RRSP or a TFSA with some of these like sort of online investing programs. That wasn't around when you or I would have been younger. You like had to go to a bank.
You had to go to a bank. You had to make an appointment and sit there. And I don't know. They're way better now. But back in those days, the desk seemed so big. And I always felt like you were sitting in a chair that sunk down a little bit. So you were like looking up at them going, please give me some money.
They're in a big comfy chair and you're on a card table chair, folding chair.
By the way, that question was split right down the middle, 50-50. So 50% say they would go back and fix that money mistake, maybe an investment that went wrong, money you just spent on something you didn't like later.
Well, I'm just thinking about if you can look into the future to find out where you end up, well, can you then change? Or is that your future no matter what you do?
I just end up depressed.
You've been listening to Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.